Hello comparison test viewers, and welcome back to another All Cars Everyday video. I'm standing here with the brand new 2021 Toyota Sienna, which received a major refresh for this model year. Let's see how it stacks up against its competition. And here's one of the stronger competitors in the shrinking minivan segment, the 2021 Honda Odyssey. Now this particular van received a nip and tuck from Honda for this specific model year. Now before we introduce the final two competitors in this test, I know that you want the best possible deal on your new van, and that's why I'd like you to hear a word from our sponsor first. If you're thinking about buying a new van, my sponsor, FindTheBestCarPrice.com, can help you get the best deal. Every month, they publish the best incentives across all car brands. And if you really want a good deal, make sure you get competitive offers from more than one of the same brand dealer. Find the Best Car Price makes it easy to reach several dealers and has free guides that will teach you how to drive down your price by cross-shopping those dealerships. Visit FindTheBestCarPrice.com/allcars to learn more. And here is the latest generation of the van that actually started the minivan segment, the 2021 Chrysler Pacifica. And here's the final van for sale in the American markets, the 2021 Kia Sedona. I'm comparing these vans in 8 different categories and declaring an advantage to a particular van in each of those 8 categories. Furthermore, I'm comparing them around the $40,000 price point, which means I'm comparing specific trims of each van, and I won't be adding any options or packages to those trims to keep the comparison test as fair as possible. So more specifically, I'm comparing the Sedona SX to the Sienna XLE, the Odyssey EX-L, and the Pacifica Touring L. With that out of the way, let's get into our first area of the comparison, which is going to be the value proposition. In this category, we take a look at the MSRP of each vehicle and then look at the standard features offered for that price. Thank you to Oakbrook Toyota in Westmont for putting me behind the wheel of a 2021 Sienna. Located at 550 East Ogden Avenue in Westmont, Illinois, this is a large Toyota outlet that is being renovated to add to its already expansive, perfectly lit showroom. Enthusiasts will also be pleased to find the large quantity of new Supras and other new and used sports vehicles on the lot. Contact the amicable sales staff at this dealership by calling 630-590-9475 or sending them a message on oakbrooktoyota.com. The brand new 2021 Toyota Sienna in the XLE trim has an MSRP of $39,750. For that money, you get full LED exterior lighting, including the headlights, daytime running lights, wide-angle fog lights, and tail lamps. You also get heated mirrors, 17-inch alloy wheels, and a variety of power-operated doors. The liftgate is powered, as are the 2 sliding side doors. There are an unprecedented 6 ways to open those sliding doors, including buttons on the key fob and in the headliner in the front row, as well as the actual door handle on the outside and inside of the door, and another redundant button inside the second row. New for any minivan is a kick feature where you put your foot under the side of the vehicle near the beginning of the sliding door and it will begin to open. Though novel, I think the handle works perfectly well. Plus, I'm not sure I would want my offspring using this feature, as I assume they're more likely to actually kick the vehicle instead of just putting their foot under the door. Speaking of the doors, there is also the now ubiquitous keyless entry and exit system that allows people to enter the minivan without having to physically touch the fob to unlock it. Using that system to get inside, drivers are greeted by an 8-way power adjustable front seat, including power lumbar support, and passengers get a similar seat with 4 ways of power adjustment. Both those front seats are heated, however, and all seats are trimmed in soft deck synthetic leather, though the steering wheel is of the more genuine kind. Technology on the interior of the Sienna is focused on its 2 central screens, the first of which is behind the steering wheel and the gauge cluster. At 4.2 inches, this colored TFT display serves as the driver information center with steering wheel mounted buttons to control its reconfigurable features. Those include the odometer, fuel economy, trip info, and more. To the left is the analog hybrid drive meter. I suppose now is a good time to mention that the Sienna is exclusively a hybrid for 2021, the first Toyota nameplate to switch to an all-hybrid powertrain from an all-gas one. We'll get more into it in the powertrain category though. Anyway, the gauge, like a tachometer, will swing clockwise under hard acceleration into the power portion to imply that you're using power and hence not driving as efficiently. Before power is the eco mode, which is pretty self-explanatory, and then there's the smallest light blue portion at the bottom called charge, which is where the Sienna goes when it's recuperating some energy back to the battery. Mounted in the hybrid drive gauge is also the temp gauge. On the right side is an analog speedometer and fuel gauge. The second screen is the 9-inch touchscreen that has Android Auto and and Apple CarPlay, Amazon Alexa, Bluetooth, and a Sirius XM trial subscription. All that audio playing capability goes through the 8-speaker audio system. Convenience features include a power tilt and slide moonroof with a sunshade, privacy glass for the rear rows, push-button start, and an auto-dimming rearview mirror with a HomeLink universal transceiver. There are also express up and down windows at all 4 corners, sunshades in the second row windows, and an electronic parking brake with an auto-hold feature. The only 4-zone climate control system I have ever seen in any vehicle is also standard on this XLE, with a separate zone for each of the front passengers and one apiece for each rear row, with the controls mounted in the second row. Places to plug in include a 12-volt outlet, 1 media USB port, and 6 charge-only USBs. Finally, there is a Remote Connect app with a 1-year trial that allows owners virtual access to the van from their smart device with the ability to lock, unlock, start, and track their vehicle from anywhere in the world, assuming they have a connection to the internet. The Sienna has its own Wi-Fi connection as well, which can be used by passengers until the initial 3-month trial period or 2 gigabytes is used, at which point the passengers lose access like in other vehicles. Of course, for a monthly subscription, the Sienna will maintain that Wi-Fi. Thank you to Continental Honda for letting me film with a 2021 Odyssey. Located at 5901 South LaGrange Road in Countryside, Illinois, this dealer has a friendly staff, beautiful showroom and lobby area, and is the biggest Honda dealership I've been to, with a huge variety of new and used vehicles. Give them a call at 708-581-7049 or visit them at continentalhonda.com. The Honda Odyssey EX-L received some significant changes for 2021 and now starts at $38,460. Exterior lighting is LED all around, including the DRLs, headlights, tail lamps, and fog lights. The side view mirrors are heated for in the winter, and they also tilt down when you put the car in reverse for backing purposes. The Odyssey EX-L has 18-inch machine finish alloy wheels with dark gray inserts. The sliding doors on the Odyssey are powered with a shut-off feature, and there are a variety of different places to open them from, including the door handle both inside and outside, a button in the second row, a button on the fob, and buttons in the first row. The tailgate door is also powered with a programmable height function. Finally, the Odyssey has smart entry with walkaway auto lock, which allows entry into the vehicle without ever touching the key fob, as seen on many new cars. It will automatically lock after the owner leaves a certain radius after parked as well. Open the door and step into the Odyssey, and you will meet the 12-way power driver's seat, which includes 4 ways of power lumbar support. The passenger gets 8 ways of power adjustment as well, with the same 4 ways of power lumbar support. Both front seats are heated, and they are leather, as is the steering wheel and second row outboard seats. Technology in the Odyssey revolves around 2 screens, the 8-inch color touchscreen infotainment system in the middle of the dash, and the similarly sized LCD screen in the gauge cluster. This screen is situated between an analog temperature gauge on the left and the fuel gauge on the right. It can be reconfigured to show a variety of information, including key vehicle statistics, outside temperature, a compass, the active safety systems, audio, and more, but will always display a speedometer readout. The screen in the dashboard has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, a Sirius XM subscription, and Bluetooth that can be activated with controls on the steering wheel. All of this audio playing capability goes through the Odyssey's 160-watt audio system that has 7 speakers, including a subwoofer. Convenience features include a one-touch power moonroof, an electronic parking brake, remote start, push-button start, and a HomeLink universal remote mounted on the auto-dimming rearview mirror. The first 2 rows of windows have an express up and down feature, and the EX-L also has a 2-position memory system for the front seats and a mirror that will save 2 separate drivers' preferred positions. The climate control is a tri-zone unit with a zone for each of the front passengers and the rear rows, with controls for the rear row mounted in the roof in the second row passenger side of the van. The second row also has sunshades and magic slide seating that can alter where the seats are positioned inside if you remove the middle middle portion of the bench seat. I struggled to find the usefulness of this, but then again, I am not a parent, so there may be something I'm missing. The third row has one motion 60/40 split folding rear seats, which can fold backwards and into the floor, creating a flat load floor, which is actually useful. That said, the second row seats can be removed in this van by one person, though it's pretty frustrating and time-consuming to get them off and back onto the hooks in the floor. It's too much of a guessing game, and soon you'll see why Chrysler's solution to this problem is so genius. Rounding out the interior are many USB exclusive charging ports, one in the front, two in the second row, and a 12-volt outlet in both the front, third row, and cargo area. Rear seat passengers can download an app called Cabin Control that allows them to change the radio and climate settings. Another app to be downloaded, this time by the drivers of the car, is Honda Link, which allows remote access to the vehicle from your smart device. Features here include starting, stopping, locking, and unlocking the vehicle, among many others. Thank you to Deary Brothers Chrysler in Iowa City, Iowa, for lending me a 2021 Pacifica to film with. They have a friendly sales staff that I spoke with on my visit there, as well as plenty of new and used Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles. Stop by at 651 Highway 1 West, give them a call at 319-600-7006, or visit them at Deary Brothers Chrysler Dodge Ram Jeep.com. The revised Pacifica now starts at an MSRP of $38,145 in the Touring L trim. For that money, you get LED lighting all around, including the headlights, DRLs, and fog lamps, as well as the tail lamps. 17-inch machine finish alloy wheels are standard, as are rain-sensing wipers and heated mirrors. The side doors are power operated, as is the tailgate out back. It's got standard roof rails and a keyless access system on all doors that allows entry at any point into the vehicle without having to use the fob. Using that system to enter the van, drivers will find their seat is well appointed with 12 ways of power adjustment, including 4 ways of power lumbar support, a memory system for different drivers, and a heating feature. The passenger seat is also heated and retains 4 ways of power adjustment. All seating in the van is leather trimmed. Technology in the van is focused primarily on the bigger 10.1-inch touchscreen infotainment display in the dashboard, but is also found in the Gauge Cluster Driver Information Center. That screen is controlled with steering wheel mounted buttons and displays relevant information to the driver, like fuel economy, range, ambient temperature, trip readouts, and more. The bigger infotainment screen is the host for wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as a Sirius XM trial subscription, Bluetooth, and Chrysler's Uconnect 5 system. That audio playing capability goes through the Touring L's 6-speaker audio system. The van is stuffed with convenience features like the others in the test, including tri-zone automatic climate control with voice activation and separate controls for the rear passengers located in the second row. Also included is remote start on the fob, express up and down windows for the driver and front passenger, tinted windows for the rear rows, and an auto-dimming rearview mirror. There is also a universal garage door transceiver and push-button start. Places to plug in inside are plentiful, with 4 traditional 12-volt outlets and 8 USB ports, 4 of which are located in the second row of the vehicle and 4 of which are in the first row. 2 of the 4 in the first row are data ports in addition to charging. Finally, the Pacifica can be connected remotely to the owner's smart devices with the Uconnect app. Free for 12 months, the app allows owners to start, lock, and unlock their vehicle from their phones. Thank you to International Kia for letting me film with a 2021 Sedona. Located at 8821 West 159th Street in Orland Hills, Illinois, this dealership has one of the best varieties of new Kia inventory in the area, which is especially important if you're trying to find a Sedona SX or a Telluride. Add to that their beautiful showroom and lounge area, and International is the go-to dealer for all your Kia needs. Give them a call at 844-292-7322 or check out their inventory online at KiaofOrland.com. The 2021 Kia Sedona received some major trim level updates, but still looks relatively the same on the outside. The highest trim level SX is still a value-packed option, starting at $41,500. It only comes in 3 trim levels this year, and the middle trim EX starts in the $33,000 range, which would not compete as well with the other competitors' price ranges in this test. Let's see if it can justify that premium with its content. On the outside, the mirrors are heated and power folding, and there are 18-inch machine finish alloy wheels. The lights are LED all around, including the positioning lights, fog lights, tail lamps, and the auto leveling headlights that also turn into a corner where the steering wheel turns to light up exactly where you're going. Besides chrome bright pieces and roof rails, there are also lots of power operated doors, including the side doors and the tailgate, which can be programmed to stop at a certain height and has a hands-free open feature where you can just stand behind it with the fob somewhere on your person and it will automatically open. The last feature on the Sedona is the smart key that has gotten to be ubiquitous in the industry that allows keyless access to and exit of the vehicle. Using that system to get into the Sedona reveals the driver's seat that has 12 ways of power adjustment, including 4-way lumbar support, and a passenger seat with 8 ways of power adjustment. Both those front seats are heated and ventilated, so passengers can be comfortable in both warm and cool climates. They're both also trimmed in leather, as is the rest of the cabin. Technology is focused mainly on the infotainment system, which is an 8-inch colored touchscreen that has a Sirius XM subscription, Bluetooth, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and a navigation system. Music playing capability runs through the Harman Kardon surround sound system with an external amp and sub. Behind the steering wheel is the instrument cluster with an analog tachometer on the left and an analog speedometer on the right. In the middle is a 3.5-inch LCD display that can be reconfigured to show the driver a variety of information, including a digital speedometer readout, outside temp, audio controls, trip distance, and more. The Sedona is packed with convenience features, including a power sunroof, express up and down windows in the first 2 rows, push-button start, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, and an electronic parking brake. The Sedona has lots of places to plug in, including a wireless phone charger, 2 charge-only USB ports, a 110-volt house-style outlet up front and in the cargo area, and 3 12-volt outlets, 2 of which are in the front of the van and 1 of which is in the cargo hold. The second row seats are called slide and stow. They are not removable, but instead fold upward up against the front captain's chairs. Though you won't have to deal with removing them manually, we'll see if it has an impact on the van's storage capacity later on. The front passenger chair also has a chauffeur seat switch, which allows the driver or rear passengers to reach over and move that seat fore and aft for more room. It's a feature found nowhere else in the segment, and this time I think it might just be excessive. The second row is plenty roomy enough unless you have Shaq sitting in the passenger seat. Temperature control in the cabin starts with the tri-zone climate control system with a separate zone and controls for the rear passengers, both rows of which also get sunshades for the windows. However, the Sedona has 2 glove boxes in the dashboard, and the bottom one can be chilled to keep food and beverages cool, which is useful and not found at this price point typically. Final holdout features include a heated steering wheel, a 2-position memory system for the driver's seat and mirror positions, and the Kia Yuvo app, which allows remote access to the vehicle with features to start, lock, unlock, and track the vehicle, among others. Simply download the app on your smart device and use the free trial with your new car. Like most other manufacturers in the industry, Yuvo turns into a subscription service afterwards. This is one of the closest comparisons in terms of value that I've ever had. That said, I think the Chrysler has the best value proposition, with the Honda as a close second. They both can be had in the $38,000 range at their trim levels that they're in, whereas the Kia is $41,000 plus in this top trim, and there is no trim that starts closer to the $38,000 mark for that van. The Toyota has some features that aren't found anywhere else, like the hands-free sliding doors, but it's also lacking leather and the tons of power seat adjustment options in the other vans. The Chrysler has stow-and-go seating, which is huge, as well as rain-sensing wipers, the biggest infotainment screen, and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The Honda has 18-inch wheels and the Magic Slide seats, but again, the updated Chrysler seems to have the best value for the MSRP. In this category, we take a look at the standard active safety technology of each vehicle, as well as reviewing the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's passive crash test results. The 2021 Toyota Sienna has tons of active safety tech standard, including a pre-collision system with pedestrian detection, lane departure alert with steering assist, lane tracing assist, automatic high beams, a full-speed dynamic radar cruise control, road sign assist, front and rear parking assist with automatic braking, and a blind spot monitor with rear cross traffic alert. Even more impressive is the fact that the Sienna scored the highest in IIHS ratings of any vehicle I've ever had in a comparison test, earning a near perfect score and a 2021 Top Safety Pick Plus. The Odyssey has lots of active safety features standard. Included are the following: a collision mitigation braking system and road departure mitigation system, forward collision warning, lane departure warning, a lane keeping assist system, adaptive cruise control with low speed follow, traffic sign recognition, a blind spot information system with a cross traffic monitor, and automatic high beams. It was rated the highest designation by the IIHS as a 2020 Top Safety Pick Plus, achieving the highest rating of good in every category except headlights, where it was rated acceptable. The Pacifica was lacking in standard active safety technology in previous years, and fortunately Chrysler has mostly remedied that with the updated 2021 model. Now standard are distance pacing cruise control with traffic stop and go, blind spot warning with a rear cross traffic monitor, parking sensors, lane departure warning with keep assist, automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, and forward collision mitigation. The Pacifica is rated the highest rating of good everywhere but headlights, which had a range from poor to acceptable. In 2019, the Pacifica was rated a top safety pick, but as far as I can tell, that is not the case any longer for 2021. Active safety features on the Sedona include high beam assist, park distance warning in the front and rear, a surround view monitor bird's eye view camera, forward collision avoidance with pedestrian detection, forward collision warning, lane departure warning, driver attention warning, smart cruise control with stop and go, blind spot collision warning, and rear cross traffic collision warning. It was rated good everywhere in IIHS testing except the ease of use of the child seat anchors and the passenger small overlap, which were rated acceptable, and the headlights, which were rated poor. The Sienna walks away with the advantage in this category. It has the best safety ratings of any vehicle I've seen, and it's also outfitted with all the latest safety gizmos. That's not to say that the other vans don't have similar features, but the Sienna has the full gamut and the best safety ratings, so it's got the clear advantage overall. In this category, we take a look at the engine, transmission, 0 to 60 time, and other performance features that are relevant to each vehicle. The Sienna is unique for the 2021 model year because it's only available as a hybrid in all trim levels. The new powertrain comes courtesy of Toyota's extensive development in hybrid powertrain technology and its relatively new dynamic force 2.5-liter inline 4-cylinder gas engine. Combined, the electric motor and gas engine create 245 horsepower, which is about 50 less than the old V6 2020 model. Combined torque is not rated, but it's probably in the same ballpark as the horsepower number. There are 2 electric motors in the front, and the 2 ways of propulsion run through Toyota's electronically continuously variable transmission, or eCVT, to the front wheels. All-wheel drive is available, which adds another electric motor at the rear, but today we're testing the front-wheel drive version. The Toyota has normal, EV, Eco, and Sport drive modes. Acceleration to 60 miles per hour is untested in the front-wheel drive van as of this writing, but by my calculations, it should be about 7.0 seconds in the front-wheel drive van. The Odyssey has a carryover 3.5-liter transverse-mounted V6, making the same 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet as the 2020 model year van. However, this engine is mated to a new 10-speed automatic, up from 9 gears last year. The engine employs modern features like variable cylinder management and Eco Assist, and the 10-speed is a shift-by-wire unit with paddle shifters for manual selection of gears should the driver feel the need for this. The van is still only offered in front-wheel drive trim, which eliminates it from competing with the new Pacifica and Sienna in the snowbelt states where some consumers deem all-wheel drive necessary. However, it is quicker than many sedans and SUVs, with a 0 to 60 time of 6.6 seconds. The Pacifica comes with a carryover 3.6-liter V6, making the same 287 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque as last year. That power is routed through a 9-speed automatic to the front wheels, but one of the big differences in the 2021 model year van is that all-wheel drive is optional. In this test, again, we are sticking with the front-wheel drive versions, but Cold States will be glad to know that this van is now a winter killer along with the Sienna if they need it to be. 0 to 60 takes 7.3 seconds. The Sedona has a 3.3-liter V6 with 276 horsepower and 248 pound-feet of torque, which scoots to 60 miles per hour in 7.6 seconds. Power is routed through an 8-speed automatic transmission with manual shifting done through the gear selector. The van is exclusively front-wheel drive, but has an active ecosystem and drive mode select with normal, comfort, and eco modes. The Odyssey gets the advantage here, coming with a strong and smooth V6, the best acceleration of the group by far, and an updated 10-speed transmission. I am making the assumption that Honda has updated the 10-speed to be more reliable than its 9 speeds of the past, but the reliability category is coming up. Odyssey comes out on top for powertrain. In this category, we take a look at how efficient those powertrains are by looking at their miles per gallon, their average fuel range, and their yearly fuel cost. The Sienna is the most efficient in the group by a huge margin at 36 miles per gallon in the city and 36 on the highway, for a combined 36 miles per gallon. The next two are nearly tied, with the Pacifica and Odyssey coming in at 19 miles per gallon in the city and 28 on the highway. The Pacifica manages one more combined MPG at 23, with the Odyssey at 22. The Sedona brings up the rear with 18 in the city and 24 on the highway, for 21 combined. The Sienna is again king in cruising range, offering up 648 miles to drive on one tank, which is the highest I've ever tested on any car in the history of this channel. Next is the Sedona with 443, the Pacifica with 437, and the Odyssey brings up the rear with 429 miles. To calculate yearly fuel cost, I use a price of $2.22 a gallon, 15,000 miles driven annually, and 55% city driving to arrive at a theoretical cost. The Sienna stomps on the competition once again with just $925 per year in gas, compared to the Odyssey and Pacifica with $1,514 per year, and the Sedona with $1,586 per year. To put that into perspective, it will make more financial sense to purchase the Sienna XLE over the Odyssey EX-L if you plan on keeping the vehicle for at least 2.2 years. The same can be said of the Pacifica Touring L if you keep it for 2.7 years. You can literally justify the higher price premium of the Toyota by simply holding onto it for a couple years. The Sedona SX is more expensive than the Sienna in the first place, but you get the picture for other trims as well. Keep in mind that if you drive more than 15,000 miles in a year, or if gas is higher than $2.22 a gallon, or if you do more than 55% city driving, this will only compound the Sienna's advantage here. Look into this, as it's not something to sneeze at. It's rare that any vehicle can justify a $1,000 plus premium on its direct competition in only a couple years. It's rare if that happens in year 7, let alone year 2. In this category, obviously the Sienna is getting the advantage. I think there will be extreme pressure on the other brands to offer a hybrid van, or even replace the gas versions completely. There's no other normal hybrid van for sale. The next closest thing is the plug-in hybrid Pacifica, but it's going to be hard to argue with those results. I expect to see at least an Odyssey hybrid in the coming years. In this category, I take a look at the projected reliability of each vehicle as predicted by Consumer Reports. They extensively test every new vehicle for sale and use historical data to try and accurately forecast new car reliability. They rate each vehicle on a scale from much worse than average to much better than average. The Sienna is rated better than average reliability, and the Sedona is rated next best at average. The Odyssey is rated worse than average, and I have a feeling that has to do with the transmissions equipped to older vans. That being said, the 2021 update may have resolved that finicky piece of equipment. The Pacifica brings up the rear with much worse than average, hampered mostly by in-car electronics and power equipment. In this category, the Sienna again gets the advantage, offering the highest rating from Consumer Reports based on buyer data. Now remember that the Sienna is the newest vehicle here, with a totally new powertrain to the Sienna name. Its previous reliability statistics may not apply as much as they did in previous years. Functionality is where I wrap up the loose ends of the comparison and include important buying factors that are relevant to purchasing these vehicles, but don't fit into other categories, such as interior dimensions, warranty, and cargo capacity. The Sienna and Pacifica seat 7 in the trims we are testing, and the Odyssey and Sedona seat 8 with a second row bench. That being said, if you need 8 passenger seating, all 4 vans have it standard in other trims. The same applies to the Odyssey and Sedona. They both can be configured with 7 passenger second row captain's chairs. But who has the most space inside for passengers in their cargo? All the vans are pretty close with the ratings for space for passengers' heads, shoulders, and hips. I want to point out though that I am confused slightly by the way that Chrysler and Toyota have come to their ratings. Instead of giving a measurement for each of those categories for each row, the Toyota just gives me 1 measurement and the Pacifica just gives me 2. I'm not entirely sure if they mean the rating applies to all rows of seating or it's unrated, but either way the Sedona has the most headroom by a margin and then loses big in legroom. The others have between 36 and 39 inches in the third row, where the Sedona has only 34 inches for your legs. No other measurements are so drastic as to be mentioned. Now, when it comes to cargo space, the Sedona is the winner. It has 33.9 cubic feet behind the third row, compared to 32.8 in the Odyssey, 33.5 in the Sienna, and 32.3 in the Pacifica. The Pacifica doesn't rate cargo space behind the second row, but the biggest is the Odyssey at 86.6 cubic feet to the Sedona's 78.4 and the Sienna's 75.2. Moving on to the full cargo capacity behind the first row in the van is biggest in the Sedona with 142 cubic feet, followed closely by the Odyssey at 140.7 and the Pacifica at 140.5. Interestingly, the Toyota loses big here, holding a maximum of only 101, which is as big a disparity in cargo space as it had an advantage in fuel economy. I'm not sure exactly why it stores so much less behind the front seats, but I theorize it has to do with the new batteries encroaching on interior space. 3 of the vehicles have the standard industry warranty, which is a 3-year, 36,000-mile general warranty and a 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty. The Kia changes the general warranty to a 5-year, 60,000-mile version and ups the powertrain warranty to 10 years or 100,000 miles. The Toyota also has an additional 8-year, 100,000-mile hybrid system warranty and a 10-year, 150,000-mile hybrid battery warranty. Finally, the Pacifica can tow 3,600 pounds if need be, compared to 3,500 in the rest of the vans. In this category, I think the Sedona gets the advantage. It has the most cargo space in 2 of the 3 measurements and the best warranty by far. Coming in a close second would be the Pacifica and Odyssey, as they are both pretty close in cargo dimensions and improve on the Sedona's third row legroom. In this category, I drive each of the vehicles on real roads and rate my subjective opinions on driving style. Typically, my commentary includes noise, vibration, and harshness levels, steering feel and weight, suspension bump absorption, acceleration, brake feel, ergonomics of the cabin, and general handling. I am not testing these vehicles at a track, nor am I pushing them to their absolute limits. Furthermore, like I mentioned, this is a subjective category, so I recommend making sure you test drive each vehicle yourself to confirm or deny your own opinions on the vehicle experience. I also tested how ingress and egress was by attempting my best impression of a hyperactive kid getting into each van as fast as they could. This involved me opening the power door, getting into the third row, waiting for the door to finish closing, then getting out as fast as I could. All vans were within 4 seconds of each other from initial door open to me having feet on the ground as I exited, so no real difference there. However, there are plenty of ways to move the second row chairs in most of these vans. The Sienna's second row has 3 controls. The 2 on the side of the seat control the recline and fore and aft motion, but one motion movement is not available as you have to use both levers to do this. There's a strap that does it in one motion on the back of the seat so third row passengers can get out themselves. To put the third row in the floor, simply pull up on the big handle in the back of the seat and fold them down and backwards into the floor. The Odyssey has 3 levers on the side of the second row seat. The middle lever folds the seat back all the way down but leaves the seat in place. To take the seat out then, you pull the lever closest to the front of the van and wrestle it out. The rear lever moves the seat forward as much as possible for quick entry into the third row in one motion, unlike the Sienna. Like other vans, the third row also has a strap to pull so that passengers can get out themselves. Putting the third row into the floor required the pull of a strap on the back of the seat and a grab with my other hand to do the folding motion. Not quite as good as the Sienna. The Sedona has 2 levers and a bar underneath the seat to move it forwards and backwards. The first lever folds the seat in half like it does in the Odyssey, and the rear lever moves the seat all the way forward in one motion, like the Odyssey. This is also the maximum cargo space position, which is nice. A strap is found in the third row as well, but you don't also have to push the seat forward to get it to move like you do in the Odyssey. The Sedona's rear seat is handle style like the Sienna, but the seat folds forward into the floor instead of backward. The Pacifica has 2 levers like the last 2 vans to fold the seat in half and then move it forward in one motion, as well as the strap for the rear row. I will say the lack of a connection point in the second row seats makes it easier to sit back there as you will have more room for your foot. It's less restricted than in other vans. Folding the third row is easy with a strap at the bottom of the seat. They go backwards into the floor. Like mentioned previously, the Chrysler can fold its second row into the floor as well, whereas you have to remove those seats from the van manually in the Odyssey and fold them up against the front seat in the Sedona and Sienna. The Sedona seem to have the least space up front for various items, with the Sienna, Odyssey, and Pacifica all coming relatively close in terms of total space up front.
All right, here we are in the 2021 Toyota Sienna. Of course, it starts in EV mode, and that's because all new 2021 Toyota Siennas are exclusively hybrids. And I'm very excited to test this out because this will be totally different from the last generation Sienna. Let's talk about visibility. Visibility out the side is very good. Visibility at the front is not as good as the Odyssey. It vibrates the wheel when it detects that you're going over the lane. It's braking as the car is slowing in front of me. Braking too hard. And I want it to accelerate faster now. Okay, I need it to really accelerate. Get going here. So that's characteristic of a lot of active cruise control systems. This one was braking a little bit too hard as a car in front of me was making a right-hand turn. Now, I think the car is not able to know that, okay, he's just about to be out of the way, you know what I mean? So it continues to brake. And I saw that as well in the Odyssey and other, active cruise control systems. So the lane departure system is extremely touchy. It vibrates at me when I'm not even thinking that I'm going near the lane or out of the lane markings at all. It seems pretty aggressive. As for comfort, it feels very comfortable to me. The seats may be a little bit harder than say the Odysseys would be. I think I like the Odyssey seats a little bit better, but these are less aggressively bolstered. We're gonna turn around here and we are going to test the acceleration of this. Acceleration was very appropriate, but it was noticeably slower than the Odyssey. I'm gonna be honest, in these types of vehicles, it's not such a big deal. All right, brake feel is pretty good for a hybrid car with regen brakes. That felt pretty good to me. All right, next let's talk about NVH, which is noise, vibration, harshness. Being a hybrid, when you're in EV mode, of course, it's the best in the segment, of non-hybrid minivans because it's perfectly silent, like right now. There's no NVH. When the gas engine fires though, the difference is that versus a normal gas minivan, the engine RPM will correlate to how much throttle you're putting in. In this van, when the gas engine fires, sometimes it's charging the battery, which is then propelling the wheels. And so the engine RPM would be higher maybe than what I'm using the accelerator pedal for. So the engine can be kind of a little bit obtrusive in that sense. While we're waiting at the stoplight, I want to point out the interior quality and styling is not only miles ahead of the previous model, but I actually think it is probably the best one that Toyota has put out recently. Here we are, 2021 Honda Odyssey. Visibility at the front is actually really good. The main reason why is because you can see almost like a bus, but in the sense that a bus, you can see exactly almost the point of the front of the car. It's similar in this. The side windows are very big, and seeing out the back is phenomenal, man. I mean, better than all the SUVs I've been driving recently. So visibility is really good in this van. This van has no business being that quick. No business whatsoever. The infotainment system is Honda's newer version. Thankfully, works great, works phenomenally. Let's talk about comfort now. The seats are really nice, but I just didn't expect them to be so fantastic like these seats are. In previous Hondas, I was never able to test it around a bend, and so I didn't know if it would go around a bend very well. And in this case, I've obviously outlined it did. It took the bend totally fine. There was no ping-ponging back and forth. The lane keeping system's doing very well. If you're in bumper-to-bumper aggressive Chicago traffic, even in its lowest setting, it leaves far too much of a gap. Hitting the bumps, even at speed, you don't feel it in the cabin almost at all. I mean, this thing just floats over the road like nobody's business. But I would say you hear the bumps a little bit. This is also the first 2021 Honda that I'm driving that is not with Honda's CVT. This is a real transmission with real gears. I haven't found that it's confused as to what gear it's supposed to be in, dropping too many gears, not dropping enough gears, not upshifting, not downshifting. It just seems pretty good to me. It's quick to downshift, which I like. It'll get you going, so, which is super nice. So if you can't tell, I really like this van. I'm gonna be honest. I really like this van. This is the first of the vans that I'm driving, and I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna be hard for someone to top this. All right, here we are in the 2021 Chrysler Pacifica Touring L. So unfortunately, all of my commentary did not record. So I'm going to try and give a recap of everything that I talked about while I was on the test drive. The first thing that I pointed out was the visibility out the front. The windshield could use to be a little bit taller or extend a little bit lower. If you like a high seating position, you're gonna see well onto the ground, but not much up. If you have a low seating position, you're gonna see more up, but not as much down. And I think that was similar to the Sienna, I want to say. Out the side is totally adequate. It's got a very low belt line, which is nice. When I was driving, I could almost see the curb or the lane line that was on this side of me without even having to stretch over. It was just such a nice low belt line. So out the side is very good. As for the acceleration tests, one thing I was noticing was that this van actually felt the slowest of the four, despite still coming with a V6. Around town, it's plenty jumpy. It feels powerful enough, but where you really start going wrong is passing maneuvers or hard acceleration from a stop. Unfortunately, you guys don't get to see the suspension test. The suspension is this like an old school American classic car. It's very floaty. It kind of just soaks up all the miles and all the bumps. Not much sound gets into the cabin from the engine or the suspension. There's a little bit of wind noise, but really not that much. So really it's quiet in here, and the suspension is really a part of the background. That doesn't really play well for a handling standpoint, but again, who buys the minivan for handling? The lane keeping system is very good. I felt like it reacted appropriately almost every single time, especially the times that I actually needed it to kind of correct me. I felt like it worked better than almost all other cars that I've tested before. Now, the adaptive cruise control also worked very well. It did a good job maintaining the distance. It did a fine job braking. The touchscreen works. It's a little slow, but it's really high res. Really high res touchscreen's really nice. As for comfort, I do think that the seats got a lot of good padding on the bottom. I like that. I think it's adequately bolstered. It's probably not too much for most Americans. Final parting thoughts for this van. If you want the most comfortable van in terms of road noise and suspension, I think this van's probably it. If you want the fastest van, this van is probably not it. I think Chrysler has a big hit on their hands again with the new technology. Of course, the stow and go seating. It's got updated looks. The Pacifica was always a pretty high performer. I do think that this thing is going to, of course, sell in volume. And I'm going to be honest, if you buy it, you are probably going to enjoy it. Would it be my purchase? Probably not. but that does not mean that it's not super, super relevant for families especially. All right, here we are in the 2021 Kia Sedona SX. Visibility out the front is actually not quite as good as I've seen in some other vans. Out the sides is really good, and out the back is pretty good as well. It's just kind of at the fronts, maybe it leaves a little bit to be desired. There was more noise coming out of the suspension. It felt like the other cars had better sound absorption. I felt like I could hear the cargo hold when I would go over bumps, and you can feel it a little bit more, or at least maybe the noise makes you think you can feel it a little bit more. So now we're going to test the automatic cruise control. I've set it to the minimum following setting, seeing as I'm not on the highway. Even though I have the distance set to the minimum setting, it kind of varies as to how, it never gets dangerously close at all, but it kind of varies in the actual length of how close it gets to the vehicle. So the engine sound does kind of get into the cabin a little bit more than the other vans. With this car, most of the time it will drop the gear and accelerate well. Sometimes I seem to have it confused where I'm at almost a lack of power, if you will. This feels more like driving a bus than either of the other two minivans that I've driven so far. It feels tall. The suspension wants to lean, I think, a little more than the Odyssey's does, for example. Another thing I want to point out, the dashboard sits higher. The belt line of this vehicle seems higher to me than either the other two minivans, which it makes you feel like you're kind of above traffic. In total, the Sedona drives like its age, and it's an older van, and that's not a demerit against the rest of this van's abilities in terms of value and packaging. But ultimately, the competition has surpassed it to quite a large degree in terms of its driving characteristics. This is the van you buy when you just need a van, you want a minivan, especially in those lower trim levels. It's got that great value proposition. Overall, it's an attractive van at an attractive price.
In this category, the Honda excels the most in terms of driving dynamics and visibility, but I didn't like having to remove the second row seats for maximum cargo capacity. So from a much more user perspective approach, I think the Pacifica gets the advantage here. The Sienna was a tad slow and the second row seats weren't as intuitive, and the Sedona drove more like its age. But take note of which dynamic you are most interested in for a minivan, as that could affect which van you might think is the best in this category. In this category, I do a light design analysis of the vehicles from my point of view. Of course, this category is completely subjective, so feel free to substitute in your own opinions as I go through what I think looks good and what could use work. For 2021, the Sienna finally ditched the frumpy styling of last year, debuting with a totally different, more angular and lither look. The front has new headlights that are more in line with the new Highlander, Venza, and some Lexus models. A thin black trim piece mimics a small grille in between the headlights, but the real grille is lower on the front fascia and is one of the two areas in the new van that are somewhat reminiscent of the old van. It's quite large and low, just like the old van, and it's shaped almost the exact same. The other area in the front of the van that kind of reminds me of the old one is the proportions, especially between the hood and headlights area. The old van's hood and headlights kind of ended in the same area and had a similar drop off into the slightly protruding grille. Not a bad thing, but it is interesting to see which areas of the old look designers chose to keep. From the profile view, the Sienna comes across as much more athletic than the old van, which was more slab-sided than anything. It's kind of the inverse of the Odyssey, with a large depression above the rear wheel wells. I like that cut. I think it's visually interesting and plays a functional role in convincing the eye that the van is longer than it is. I like how all cut lines, including the convex surfacing on the upper parts of the doors, all converge to flow into the tail lamps. The rear view is probably my favorite of the exterior though, and shares nearly nothing with the old van, which was upright and tall. The new one has a more raked rear window, with a shelf for the wiper blade that also gives a defining spot for the new taillights. I also like the application of the blade that runs from the tail lamps into the rear quarter panel, like the one seen in the Camry. All of this looks good without seeming to raise the liftgate load height too much over the old model. Toyota style came back with the 2019 RAV4, and their streak continues with the Sienna. The 2021 Odyssey received a new front end and minor revisions elsewhere, but you're forgiven if you can't tell it apart from the 2020 model as they look very similar. Up front, the main bright piece in the grille moves up above the headlights, and there are new wheels available. I've always liked this generation of the Odyssey's styling, and the side profile is the most complex minivan I have ever seen, with the lightning bolt cut in the rear window and a similar cut replicated in the lower part of the side door sheet metal. It rides the line between busy and intricate. For me, it falls in the latter category. From the rear, there isn't too much difference over last year. I no longer like how the third row windows bleed into the rear window. It makes the C-pillar look weird as it attempts to connect to its traditional spot. The taillights give the vehicle a visual width and shorten the overall vehicle vehicle height, which is also amplified by the upturn in the rear bumper from the profile view. The Pacifica was my favorite looking van every year that it's been in comparison tests, both on the exterior and interior. This year, I feel like it has real competition for the first time from the Sienna, and the Odyssey still looks pretty good, like in years past. It's not often I think older generations of models look better, but I'll be honest, I liked the smoothed out look of the 2020 model year Pacifica's headlights better than the smaller, meaner ones it has this year. The rest of the front of the van is pretty similar, and I think a point of differentiation between it and the Sienna is that it has a much more car-like front end, instead of being a more upright, awkward style. The side profile is pretty much the same, though the 2021 model did get new wheel styles. If you want to avoid the origami looks of the Odyssey and new Sienna, then I think the Pacifica does a better job at being conservatively styled, but remaining totally upmarket visually. If I don't like the front of the new Pacifica as much as I did on the old model, the opposite is true for the rear. The new tail lamps look awesome. I think the new piece connecting them is impressive, but I am worried that this is becoming too trendy with a ton of new Kias, Lincolns, and others copying this style. Either way, I think exterior-wise the Pacifica is as close to the full package as you can get on a minivan. The Sedona has an exterior that is both plain yet attractive in the same sense, where most plain car designs end up just looking boring. The grille and headlights look posed in an athletic central stance, augmented by the wide side scoops for the fog lights underneath the headlights. The side view is somewhat slab-sided in demeanor, and the rear cut line in the windows is the inverse of the Odyssey's, which I don't like as much because it makes the rear 25% of the van look heavier than the first 75%. From the rear, the van is largely anonymous, which was something I thought the front of the vehicle avoided. I think the taillights could use a size increase so the rear doesn't seem like such a vast expanse of metal. The floating roofline we see in the Honda is replicated here in a better fashion because the C-pillar doesn't extend down only to be left hanging. The bumper doesn't pull upwards toward the end either, but instead remains constant for a low load height. On the interior, the Sienna makes positively massive improvements as well. If the old van's exterior was dated, if not terribly ugly, the same cannot be said of the interior. Unbelievably, the new van's interior is actually even better than the exterior. I was immediately impressed by the quality of materials. My second thought was how well Toyota was able to pull off a genuinely attractive interior design like one out of a sedan or SUV without sacrificing storage space and functionality. First, the new steering wheel is slimmed down and more attractive. The screen moves above the dashboard, which allows for the dash to sink a little bit and look so much less utilitarian. The climate controls and vents are tucked right below the screen and are within easy reach. The transmission tunnel is the most impressive part, however. Underneath it is a large area for purses, backpacks, pens, basically anything the size of an airplane carry-on can fit down there. And yet, there is still a central trans tunnel with a gear shifter, cup holders, and other storage areas. Best of all, it looks great, like something out of a German vehicle. It's also raised up significantly to be within easier reach, and to make more room for that space below it. If you're a small person though, maybe go make sure this would be comfortable for long road trips, as I could see it being a little too high up. Otherwise, the rest of the interior is awesome, with a shelf just ahead of the shifter and a passenger side dash that isn't busy or boring. I would like to personally congratulate Toyota on this interior. Seriously, I think it's that good. On the interior, the Odyssey seems to have been pinched by a giant hand right under the central infotainment screen, a la Ford interiors from 2013, and especially previous Honda interiors. I don't love this style because I find it dated. Interior styling is being lengthened, widened, and spaced out to get a clean feel. This trend started with the German luxury brands, but has leaked down to Volvo, Tesla, Kia, and Hyundai and Ford. Besides that, it remains a very functional design, and the button-style shifter looks appealing despite many people's reservations about the usefulness of such setups. I am neutral on the steering wheel, and I think the gauge cluster is atypical, yet ultimately visually appealing. The interior of the Pacifica received a huge upgrade over 2020. What's most immediately noticeable is the new touchscreen infotainment system. It's better for sure, but I wish Chrysler had updated where the vent trim pieces end to align with the edges of the screen like they did last year. Other than that, the area below the screen with the rotary gear selector and the rest of the climate control buttons is pretty much the same as last year. The steering wheel also looks new to me despite being similar to the last one. Overall, still toward the top of the class in terms of attractiveness, but the Sienna came out swinging for 2021 in this area. The Sedona's interior is a good representation of the wide aesthetic that is growing in popularity, but not exactly the simple, elegant ethos of a Volvo or Tesla. It is attractive to me, but I can tell that it's starting to get dated with the screen size and placement and gauge cluster orientation. The Sedona also also looks better with a more traditional transmission tunnel and shifter, possibly at the sacrifice of a very versatile cabin with lots of storage space. At least, that's my theory why other minivans don't have the traditional transmission tunnel you would see in a sedan or SUV. There are plenty of storage spaces in the Sedona regardless. Exterior-wise, I think the Pacifica is still my favorite, but moving to the interior, the Pacifica takes the backseat to the Sienna. So which is my favorite overall? I think I've got to go with the Sienna. For a minivan, most of your time fantasizing about styling, if you can do that about vans, would be done on the interior. That's where the most time is spent, and that's where it's the most important. In this category, the Sienna unexpectedly ends the Pacifica's 4-year styling stronghold. The Odyssey is no slouch either, but it's time for Kia to update their game. And with the 2022 Carnival, Kia seems to have done just that. Tune in next year to see that new van take on these three after their first year of sales. But otherwise, this comparison is over. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please feel free to leave a like. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.